I think we can all agree the talk that third-party game sales aren't doing that well on Switch 2 is quite interesting. Hey, it's EC here, and today we're going to be talking about this little thing that game sales on the Switch itch for third-party seem to be, or say Switch 2, have been seemingly not that great. Besides Cyberpunk 2077, obviously, which is obviously apparently done really well, I want to go with the why. Now, for those who don't know, Switch and Switch 2 and all these other Nintendo consoles have always had the issue that Nintendo games always sell better than, obviously, third-party games. That is obviously just how it is for the Switch, and not even just Switch, but like Nintendo consoles. You know, they just cannot always outsell every other publisher and developer, because the whole reason people buy Switch and Switch 2s and all this sort of stuff is to play Nintendo games. Like, the reason people buy a Nintendo console is to buy Nintendo games. And that is why those games always seem to outsell every other publisher on the system, which is good for Nintendo, and also it's good, obviously there's a bit more competition. Obviously it makes people actually want to buy a Switch or Switch 2, whatever, because obviously it makes them want to buy a Nintendo console to play these Nintendo games. Likewise, you know, these third-party games, it really depends on what they are, whether or not they're really relevant to the audience that they're trying to go for. Because, for example, like, you know, I don't think that a lot of the EA games, for example, will be relevant to, you know, Nintendo fans, for example. Like, a lot of EA's titles, like, say, Madden, FIFA, cool to have, but not really, at least in my opinion, not really, like, major titles to have for something like a Switch 2. Likewise as well, games like Sonic the Hedgehog have always sort of been, like, more so themed nearer to Nintendo's own first-party lineup, because obviously Sonic and Mario have always had this sort of rivalry. They even had some exclusive Sonic games, obviously, with Mario Sonic games for a little while, which obviously no longer being made. But it was an interesting concept. But then you also got to just look at it logically. Like, people are obviously not able to spend as much money as they used to, because obviously prices have gone up for everything, and they can't always afford to buy loads of different games. And when you buy a Switch 2, obviously the price of Switch 2 is like $450, depending on in a USD, 500 in if you want the Mario Kart World Bundle. In the UK, it's £395 for the Switch 2 on its own, £430 if you want it with Mario Kart World. So yeah, it's a bit different. But let's be real. Nintendo Switch 2 is not failing because third-party game sales aren't doing that well. You can argue the system is a success or failure, however you like. We don't actually have all the full details yet, so we won't actually know. The problem I feel with third-party games is obviously they had quite a few third-party games at launch of the Switch 2. They also had the back catalogue of Switch 1 games, and also another thing is Nintendo was putting up updates for games like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which were free, and these games kind of just boosted attention for these older games that already were on Switch 2 and Switch 1 and whatnot. And people just thought, okay, you know, I already own Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'll see how this update works. And obviously, these games run great now. But then, I'm not saying it's Nintendo's fault that these third-party games are bad. I'm also saying, like, it comes down to, obviously, a myriad of things. People who bought a Switch 2 to play the new Mario Kart and didn't buy anything else yet. People who bought the Switch 2 and couldn't afford to buy many other games because, obviously, they spent so much money on the Switch 2 and, obviously, prices have gone through the roof on everything. You know, developers not really putting their best foot forward with some titles. The game key cards don't help either, because anyone who wants to buy physical third-party games probably won't buy the physical third-party games unless they're buying Cyberpunk, because obviously that's the only game that's fully on the cartridge. There's quite a few reasons why you wouldn't buy, like, a lot of third-party games on Switch 2, and it's not anything bad, to be honest. It just kind of feels like, why was these not addressed early on? Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. Like, share, comment, turn on notifications. I've been EC. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm signing out. Peace.